Good evening, everyone, and a warm welcome from the Museum of London, coming to you from our homes to yours. We're delighted to share our first online event with you this evening, City of Refugees in Conversation. Tonight's event is part of Refugee Week 2020, which is also breaking new ground with an entirely digital programme this year. If you enjoy tonight's event, then please do check out their website, where there's lots of other great stuff going on throughout the week. Tonight's conversation will feature 3 fantastic speakers. The video elements you'll see have been pre-recorded, but you can join in with the conversation online on our social media channels tonight. Post your questions using the hashtag City of Refugees, and our speakers will be online with us to answer them. You can find our details in the description below. Now let me hand over to the first of our speakers and our chair for this evening, Saira Niazi, who will tell us more about tonight's event.
Hello. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's City of Refugees event organised by the Museum of London. My name is Saira. I am a community worker and the founder of a project called Living London. Over the years, I've explored hundreds of hidden gems, collected countless stories and worked with communities across London on various oral history, heritage and food projects. I run public wandering tours in areas throughout London. During my public tours, I connect up 3 or 4 special hidden gems in a local area. So from bingo halls to bus garages and secret gardens to soup kitchens. I try to bring these spaces to life through storytelling and through sharing anecdotes of people and place. My wanderings also aim to give people an opportunity to form very personal connections with spaces, with each other and with sort of the communities that we meet. As a British Pakistani, born to immigrant parents, I've always been really interested in notions of home. During a recent trip to Lahore, I wrote a book called On Belonging, Reflections of a Renegade Guide. In my book, I reflect on what it means to belong, both on a personal and on a universal level. I draw upon the stories, insights and experiences of the many different kinds of people I meet, and I celebrate the many different kinds of beautiful lives that exist. So many of the people who come along to my wandering tours are connected through a common desire to discover, to share and to better understand. London is a wondrous living city that provides endless opportunities to get to know yourself and others and to seek and find home in unlikely spaces. So as part of Refugee Week 2020, I will be interviewing Yusuf and Tamer, 2 young Syrian refugees who've made London their home. I met Tamer and Yusuf quite serendipitously through my wandering work, and we went on to become friends.
Thank you, Saira. We're now going to hear from Yusuf, who'll be sharing the story of his extraordinary journey from Syria to here in London.
My name is Yusuf. I am a refugee from Syria. I came to the UK in early 2016, as I mentioned, as a refugee from Syria, crossing the whole borders in Europe, and even before that to Turkey, and then I made it to Greece, crossing the sea by that dinghy with loads of people in it. Eventually, and gladly, we made it safe to the land of Greece, and after that we just walked there, and then from train and then walk and train to walk, like, you know, sometimes you just need to cross the borders, avoiding the police point and these checkpoints and stuff like this. So on the way on halfway, let's say, in Europe, I decided to come to the UK, to come to England, and I left my cousin in Germany, and then I just made my way to Belgium and then to France. And then I stayed 3 months in the jungle in North France, in Calais. And then I made it to the UK in January 2016. If I want to talk a bit about this journey, was tough, like really tough and sweet at the same time, because I started to evaluate myself, and I just realized, like, as a human being, you don't need to have that much stuff to live your life, rather than just to have that little bag in your back, heading somewhere you would like to be for a safe life and better one indeed. So I had a really terrible time in France in the winter, actually, in November, December and January. I lived in a tent there for almost 3 months, and there I made friends, which I was still meeting here. They made it as well here to England, and they're living in London, so we just meeting sometimes and stuff like this. Apart of this, on the personal level, I would say, as I mentioned before, it just took me really to the point where I start to feel like all the world is my place. At the same time, there's nothing is place after leaving Syria, after leaving Aleppo, my home city, with all that structures in there, leaving my family behind, tearing apart, and it was really even like a dramatic escape from Syria, scary one indeed. But made it with a friends with his family to Turkey, and then, as I mentioned, we just get it to Europe. By that time, the hope was just only to get the safest place I would like myself to be in, and get life roll on again, and get something I dream of, like since I'm a kid, or since I'm a child, just to do something I would like to do, and spread all these things I'm learning at the moment, and things like some concept and things I build them. I'm raising as a little child in Syria, so start to say like my personal concept, and my inner persona, just to bring it out and see like how it could be in a new environment, in a new atmosphere, a new life, a new country, a new building, and new all these things. So I would say I did sort of like pretty well, because I started to meet people like friends, and feeding family as well. And when I came here to the UK, I had a really bad time struggling with the Home Office about like some right to live, or even right to work. But eventually and gladly I gained it in actually in 2020, after like almost more than 4 years of struggling with the Home Office and all these uh, um, some concepts like about like you're asylum seeker, you're not allowed to work, you're asylum seeker, you don't have a right to move, or even just to decide where place you want to live, or whatever you want to do. So it was a lot of barriers indeed, and that's I felt it myself as a personal experience. And I would say, yeah, there's loads of people, probably young people, they are having the same problems, probably at the moment as well, struggling with their legal document here in the UK. So I lived first in North England, and I just moved down to Nottingham for a little while, and then I just made it to England, and I lived that in North London, in Hackney, in winter night shelter. And after that, I actually a great person who integrated me to Refugee at Home. This is another charity who's providing a spare rooms for refugees who doesn't have accommodation or a place to live. And that was sort of like the start to see the people from inside, or the English, or the houses in England from inside, and how's the people of this country living and doing their life. And that was sort of like a very good grade as well, like step to integrate to the new lifestyle, let's say. And but by that time, I start to cook some dishes from my home country, Syria, and sharing some meals with the people who's hosting me. And a matter of fact, they pointed about the how delicious this food is, and the way of me cooking this food is quite like stylish at some point, and it's really delicious. And they advised me to do something sort of like public things to do. So and by that time, I get in touch with My Grateful, and this is another charity who is helping the asylum seekers and refugees to cook their home dishes, and it's a way of another integration and helping these chefs, what they call it, like My Grateful chefs. So I did that course, and I've got my hygiene certificate, and I start teaching Syrian dishes in public cookery class as well. So my experience with food here in England is I think it's like really quite deep, and it's built up even when I arrived here, not even before. I was seeing my mom cooking in back in home, but wasn't that much attention to it, rather than attention to get to the moment where they are serving that delicious food and we just eating rather than not even helping to prepare the food or just to prepare the dishes. And now I'm just sort of like teaching some Syrian dishes to the public here in London, actually in particular. And it was really great fun, and just meeting people and socializing, which that was really great. And this is another window of integrating as a refugee or even asylum seeker by that time. So they are trying to break another barrier by a sort of like integration, and sort of like helping getting out of that dark spot and doing something you might be interested in, or you got skills of these things. Yeah, that's pretty much about myself, rather than on the career skills. I would say I started doing. I gained actually a diploma in IT, information communication technology, and now I'm doing software engineering, like being a developer in England, which I believe that's the things I would like to work with, like computer, or like since I am a little kid, I was just digging inside that huge case, like by that time, and just see all these components and the hardware. And now even I work more about the software things I do, even by night or just after work, as I work at the moment. So yeah, I would like to if I want to say something, or I have a chance to say something now, I would like to deliver two messages. The first message is the asylum seeker or refugee, say my situation, which I would like to say, hey, come out of that spot and meet people from outside. There is great people really of this country welcoming refugees who in need, or welcoming vulnerable people in needs. And we everyone, I would say, as a human being, we got potentials, we got goals, we got like dreams just to do something. Um, and by going out and discovering even places rather than people as well, that's the first step of doing something. That's the first step of breaking these barriers. We just as a sort of like foreigner, we believe in that there's a language barriers, there is a probably because the color barriers, there is huge things if you want to think about it. But at the same time, if you think in the positive side, you would say, no, I should just break these things, all these, things that are just imaginary things, I would say, if you want to think in positive way. Another message I would like to say to the people of this land, by saying, there is some people who are just come recently or even before to this country, who needs help and who needs to say hi and hi back as a normal human with, as I mentioned before, with goals and dreams as well. So, and even I've saw this myself. There's really lots of people. I lived in two different, with two different families here in England, and I've seen how generous and welcoming and hosting they are. Um, so yeah, this is a little about my story, very briefly, very you know. So yeah, thank you so much. I would like to say no more. Bye.
Thank you for that incredibly moving presentation, Yusuf. We'll hear more from both Syra and Yusuf in a short while. Now, let's hand over to Tamer, who'll be sharing his story with us. Afterwards, we'll watch Bagful of Dreams, a short film created by Tamer with Dominic Losher Films during his time in the jungle in Calais.
Hello everyone, my name is Tamer and I'm from Aleppo, Syria, and today I'll be telling you a little bit about my story and how I got to the UK and how I ended up living in London. So I'm from a very tiny village in the north of Syria, and I grew up as any other Syrian child, going to school, playing football, enjoying my life until the war broke out in the end of 2010, beginning of 2011, and there was a lot of teenagers who were going to do something called in Syria a medical check. So at the age of 16, 17, you would have between 16 and 17, you would have to go to an army base and do a medical check, and then at the age of 18, you would have to go and serve in the army because it's compulsory in Syria. And at that specific time, they were taking people, and these guys would never come back. And that's when my dad said, "Okay, you can't stay here anymore," and he sent me to Lebanon, and that was the only place that I was able to go to because my dad had a friend there, and I ended up living in Lebanon, Beirut specifically, for 4 years. I was working there and I was helping a little bit my family, and was trying to study, but it was very hard. So you either had to study or work, and I chose working because that was the only way I could support myself, being 16 years old there and helping my family. It's very hard when you're 16 to grow up as a man, but if you're from Syria or unfortunately some other countries in the Middle East, you would have to be a man from the day that you are born. Anyways, I stayed in Lebanon from the age of 16 until 19, and I was nearly gonna become 20 before I decided that I can't do that anymore. I was working too much. I was taking minimum wage. I was being bullied in the streets. If you know any Syrians who live in Lebanon, they will tell you exactly the same. And there were so many people who aren't enjoying the Syrians being there, and I mean, Lebanon has its own problems, and I sometimes I get that. And at the end of 2015, they introduced a new law, which basically meant that every Lebanese employer who had a Syrian employee, they would have to sponsor them. And my boss, after 4 years, didn't want to do that because he said there was too much paperwork. And so I was on minimum wage. My boss didn't want to sponsor me, and I had absolutely no future there. And that was the end of it. I just couldn't stay there anymore. And I gathered whatever money I saved over the last 3 years and 10 months, and I borrowed a little bit from my cousin, and I just said that was it. I just can't stay there anymore, and I just made my way to Turkey. And at the time, Turkey was allowing Syrians to come in without visa, and now you need a visa to get into Turkey. I met 2 other Syrian guys at the airport, random Syrians, and we became very good friends. And we went to Turkey, and we headed to the unknown, as hundreds of Syrians and other refugees from other places went. They just literally went for the unknown. I got to Turkey. We ended up in Istanbul, then Izmir, and then we went to a place called Bodrum in Turkey. We got arrested by the police a couple of times. We were trying to get to Greece. They just let us out, and then we tried again, and somehow we ended up in the middle of the Mediterranean with over 60 people in that plastic boat, and the capacity was, I think, 15, 20, and they just put literally like around 60 people inside. The boat stopped in the middle of the sea, and we were stuck there for nearly 2 hours and a half because the boat was new, and when you put too much pressure on it, it wouldn't go too far because it would get heat up too much. So after like an hour from leaving Turkey, we were strangled basically between Turkey and Greece, and the coast guards from both countries were just looking at us, which I think they just couldn't do anything because it was done to the national waters. Anyway, we managed to get the boat to get going, and we got to Greece. The minute we got to Greece, the boat flipped, and there was some people with disabilities with armchair, and it was a whole mess because there were lots of kids, a lady with disability, and there was lots of people who couldn't swim, and I can't swim. Two of my friends, I don't know, I wasn't sure my friends could swim, so the boat engine hit the rocks underneath us, and the boat flipped, and we all ended up in the water. And there were like 5 lifeguards who were volunteers. It wasn't even the Greek lifeguards, they were just some volunteers from all around Europe who came to help us. We managed to get there, and all our clothes were soaked to Greece, and then we were put in a detention center the entire night with our clothes wet, and children and kids and women and everybody was there. Anyway, to cut the story short, that was only me getting from Turkey to Greece in that way, and then from Greece to all the other European countries, it was exactly the same. We were like a football, and everybody was just kicking us out from a country to another. And I ended up in Calais, France. I'm sure some of you have heard about it, or heard of it. And I was there for 5 months. I basically ended up in Calais because I lost my friends, because they got arrested in Italy, and for some reason, the police didn't arrest me because they thought somehow I don't look very Syrian, and they just let me, and my friends were arrested. And the only place I knew at the time from messages and from my friends was Calais, and I ended up in Calais, and I literally had €2 on me. And the day I arrived to Calais, I was walking, and the police were strolling around, and I got beaten. I got beaten on the back of my calf, and the injury is still there sometimes because I play a lot of football. Well, not in the lockdown, but before the lockdown, I play a lot of football. I've always played football, and sometimes it hurts, and it's on the right foot. So yeah, sometimes it hurts, but that was my welcome to Calais. So I got beaten by the CRS, the French riot police, and I got to Calais with €2 in my pocket, and my friends, I had no idea where they were because they had the phone, and because we had one phone between the 3 of us, and they got arrested, and I was alone in Italy, and I was alone in Paris, and it was a whole big problem. I don't want to get into it because I could just spend hours, but anyway, I ended up from Greece and to other European countries, and then I ended up in Calais, where I met lots of wonderful volunteers, lots of wonderful friends, and I didn't know where I was going. I had no money to go anywhere else in Europe, and the first day I arrived, as I said earlier, I got beaten, so there was no way for me to go anywhere else. So I just tried my luck like everybody did to get to the UK, and after 5 months of sleeping rough on top of a dump in Calais in a tent, with €2 in my pockets, I was just trying to help as much as I can with my language, because I was very lucky to be able to speak English. So I was trying to help the volunteers, whoever needed help with translations, and I made it at the end. After 5 months, I made it, and now I'm in the UK, and now I'm in London. I've been here for the last 4 years. I can't tell you I've achieved at least half of what I was aimed to achieve, but I am certainly on the right way. It took me 2 years to get my papers, and that's a whole other problem. It just took me ages to get my papers, so I literally been able to do what normal people do for the last 2 years only. So I've been able to finish my English. I've been able to support my family in Syria more. Unfortunately, I haven't seen them now for the last 8 years, but I am certainly on the right track, as they say. My parents are okay. My village, thanks God, have always kind of been okay, because we live in a very remote village, so it's literally, you can't even see it on the map. So it's just outside Aleppo, and I'm very lucky that my parents have always been okay. But obviously we haven't got power, we haven't got gas, we haven't got schools, we haven't got hospitals, we haven't got even the basic needs of childcare, of nothing, just in the city. So imagine what the life is there like now. But I've been very lucky that I've been trying to help them for the last 8 years, and they're all okay, thankfully. But that's me. That's my story, and I can tell you there's hundreds of thousands of Syrians and other refugees from other countries in the Middle East who have way more worst stories than mine. I mean, to be honest, yes, I have slept in the streets. Yes, I have been arrested countless times around Europe. Yes, I have slept in prisons. Yes, I did that. But I've been very lucky because there's a lot of people who had worse stories. And so now I'm determined to finish my education, get better and learn more, and try to help my community as much as I can when I can. And now that's a bit of promotion. Now I'm starting my own YouTube channel, so it's going to be a little bit in Arabic and a little bit in English. So yeah, if you're Arabic, please join it. If you're English, please join, because there are English videos. So I don't know, I hope that is not too long. So that's a little bit about myself. And I hope to get to meet some of you soon, and I hope I will be able to answer your questions on the 16th of June on the event of Refugee Week.
Possiblement se cogne à la porte de garage. Puis il dit que les jeunes ils seraient en arrière, puis il garoche du stock par les fenêtres. Il serait rentré en dedans.
I was forced to leave my home. My family told me to leave without saying goodbye because they couldn't bear to see me leaving. So I left at night. I was just 16. I was just a kid. I left my home with some friends. We left to follow our dreams. We crossed the oceans. And we slept in the woods. We slept in the streets. We arrived to France. We were so happy and so excited. We are finally closer to our dreams. Some people could say, why England? Why not another country? It's like asking me why you're dreaming or why you're even alive. That's my dream, and I want it. And I will do it to get there and study and be free and be a better person, and to let my family be proud of me. When we finally arrived in the refugees camp, our dreams and excitement had changed. I have never seen such a dirty and ugly place before. I'm hoping with all my heart that we will be one day be treated like humans again and be respected by people again. That's what we deserve. We deserve that, sir. I deserve life, sir.
الله أكبر الله أكبر. جيب الحجر جيب الحجر.
يا سلام، انا من السودان يا حبايبي. اهلا وسهلا بكم خوري يا حبايبي.
تشرفنا نحن من سوريا، اخوانك من
من سوريا. اهلا وسهلا بكم في مخيم،
الله يسلمك.
في مخيم جنقل.
شو هالمخيم هذا؟ شو هالمكان هذا؟
يا حبيبي هذا هي مخيم اوسخ، هذا اسمه الجنقل. اوسخ مكان، اوسخ مخيم بالعالم، العالم كلها. هذه اسم الجنقل.
والله ان شاء الله احلامي رايح اكمل دراسه واساعد اهلي.
مرضى وان شاء الله بس اقطع على بريطانيا بدي ابعث لهم مصاري. ان شاء الله يشفيهم هيك.
ان شاء الله ربنا يشفيهم.
بكمل دراستي
طيب انت شو حلمك اخي يوسف؟
والله يا حبيبي انا رايح لبريطانيا افهز الى مكان امن. انا كلاجئ وانا غادرت عائلتي منذ 2003 وافهز الى مكان امن، وبعد ذلك يعني أبحث إلى مكان أواصل فيها دراستي. ساكن في مخيم تشاد يعني مثلها ومثل الجنجل المكان الذي نحن نسكن فيه الآن. هيك لا مأكل ولا مشرب وهيك يعني حياة صعبة بالأمانة يا حبيبي.
إن شاء الله إن شاء الله
إن شاء الله.
نعدي إن شاء الله
إن شاء الله حبيبي إن شاء الله ربنا يحقق أحلامنا وأحلام الجميع إن شاء الله. This is our life, yeah my friend. You have to accept. This is something from God. My friend, you have to accept.
We make a lot of hopes for our families, but after I see this, we can't go back, and we need to move on because we need to reach our goals to help our families back in Syria.
My friend, you have to, yeah, we hope for you.
Hopefully,
Yeah.
because
We hope for you too.
and I hope this disaster will
My
end one day.
friends, yeah.
Hope so.
Of course, we need help, my friends. We need help. We need help from everyone who feeling the feeling of human being, my friends. We need help. Yeah, we need help.
Thank you, Tama, for another extremely moving and thought-provoking presentation. Thank you also to Dom Losher for allowing us to share Bag of Dreams this evening. Now we're going to have some discussion between all three of our speakers. Don't forget, you can send in your questions using the hashtag City of Refugees on our social media channels. Now, over to Syra for the first question.
So London is a world famous city. Did you have any impressions of the city growing up, and what kind of place did you think it was going to be?
Growing up back home in Aleppo, I've always been fascinated by London. I mean, who wouldn't? I've always thought of it as a city that is full of culture, museums and art galleries and festivals, and of course one of the most famous theaters in the world. And it's also home for one of the oldest democracies in the world. But of course that was all on my books growing up, on TV, on documentaries, on movies, and I had to see the place myself. And it's exactly what I expected it to be. It's a city that is full of tolerance and colors and just people from all over the world calling this place home, and now I could see why, and I am proud myself to call it home.
Are there any places in London that remind you of home? Can you tell us a bit about these places?
Yeah, sure. Well, London is such a big city with diversity and multicultures. Sometimes when I work in North London, such as like in Edgware Road, where this is some sweet places or sweet shops that are selling baklava or things like this. That's remind me home. I lived in East London, where it's the souks, bazaars, or the street market. That's just like another things that remind me of home. At the same time, actually, nowadays it just reminds me of home because it's such a great weather, and that's literally what home it is. So yeah, pretty much. There's lots of places. I like being around there because I feel like more relaxed, more warm, and I think this is a very good sign of saying these things or this place actually just remind me by my home back in days in my home country. Yeah, pretty sure.
What are some of the challenges you faced when you first arrived in London?
To be absolutely honest, I've always been very lucky since the day I arrived to London. I was always surrounded by good friends who helped me, but of course I had to face some difficulties like everybody else did. I think my biggest issue was getting my visa. It was the hardest, longest and most boring process ever. I wasn't allowed to work, to study properly or do anything else. And I had to sign in the Home Office in Croydon, which was an hour away every 2 weeks, basically. And that's a normal procedure that every asylum seeker would know. So you'd have to go to the Home Office, queue outside, be checked by the security, and then go inside, sign in front of an immigration officer, and then leave. I had to skip countless English classes for that purpose. And I think after a year and a half of doing that, I was arrested in that same place, and I was told that I was going to be deported to Croatia. And I was thinking, you know what, that's it. That's the end. And I was taken to Brookhouse, which is a detention center / prison in Gatwick Airport, and was kept there for nearly 2 weeks. I lost my English exam that I was studying for like the past 12 weeks, and you know, I thought that was it. That was the end of everything. But again, I thought it's okay. It's gonna be fine. And anyways, I had to video call the judge from my cell, and he kindly let me go after 2 weeks. And 6 months later, I received my interview and got my leave to remain visa, and I was able to start my life properly. You know, sometimes I really wish I'd been arrested earlier, so I wouldn't have wasted literally nearly 2 years of doing absolutely nothing but just being alive with no access to anything. But it's all alright now, it's all in the past, and I'm grateful for everything.
So one thing I really love about London is the diverse and incredible food scene. What do you think about food in London, and do you still cook and eat Syrian food?
Yeah, well, I still eat and cook Syrian food, even though I teach actually some Syrian dish to the public here in London, and that's through my Grateful. This is another such a like a great, a fantastic charity who's supporting the asylum seeker and refugee and integrate them through their schools by cooking to the public here in London. And nowadays I do some online cookery class actually through this organization. Yeah, even though I try to bring some new recipes to my cooking every day, say, because living like sort of 5 years out of the country, my home country, I would say, and seeing all these new ingredients and those different kitchens and recipes, it's like say, yeah, I would like to try this. I would like to add this into my previous what I know combination, and sometimes it's really work well. So yeah, and I'm the type of person I like to try new things, even like in terms of food. Yeah, I'm a big fan of trying like different dishes from different countries. But yeah, pretty much. And I cook and I eat Syrian food. And the good things here in London as well, because it's big and diverse as well, is you can find whatever ingredients here. There is a lot of like Mediterranean shops where you could find all your recipes, ingredients. I mean, in there. So pretty much, yeah.
What advice would you give to a refugee who's newly arrived to London?
I would say, yeah, when I arrived here to the UK, I had that fear, like it's London, big, how I could just fit, how I could integrate, what rejection I might have. So and all that things was just like imaginary things. I just was just thinking in a negative way rather than. So what I would like to say to the refugees or the asylum seekers as a new arrival here to the UK, London in particular, there's lots of great people there around. Just reach out and ask for help. There's really loads of fantastic, amazing, great charities and organizations who are just looking for refugees just to help them to boost their potentials and structure sometimes their goals, because we need this, like as young whatever, like a young person who just arrived to the new country with lots of barrier, you need some type of like helps as a formal buddy who just giving you that sometimes instructions and build that plan for better future and so on. So yeah, just don't stay and think about the barriers, rather than just go out, ask, feel the experience. And yeah, we all sometimes, we go through awkward, embarrassing situations. But yeah, that's I would say this is the procedure of learning English, learning new skills, boosting your inner. I think everyone need this. And as a new arrival to the big city like London, you need all these things, and don't stay doing whatever. Just go out and reach out, ask for help. There are people really looking for some people just to help them. So yeah, that's my advice to the asylum seekers and the refugees. Practice break some barriers.
In light of the pandemic, how has your view of London changed?
Actually, indeed, during the pandemic, I didn't feel the pandemic really well because I'm still working. I work as an IT technician in a food store. And even though we doubled our working hours in that sector, so pretty much I'm traveling every day, almost like, to work from South London. I live in Battersea, and my work site is in North London, in Islington. But I had that really great experience I would like to talk about. At the beginning of the pandemic, I wanted to do something sort of like a new things, which is traveling by bus to my workplace, and by morning, and just come back the next day by bus on the evening time. So that morning, I feel remember, like where London was super empty, crossing Battersea Bridge, and then get into the the city of London and look all these gigantic, massive buildings and huge, while streets and roads that are empty. There's no people. There is no vehicles. Just only the bus. You are alone on the board, on top of the bus. That's my favorite place. Just looking around how London is empty. And then the other day I just went back. It was like a little dark by 6 o'clock or something. And it was just a different feeling that you are having this experience with like sort of like empty places. You might like just a few months ago where people and vehicles and such crowd and even sometimes pollution in that corners of the city of London, even around London. So I would say I've seen London during the pandemic so empty, and even before I've seen it like so crowded and things. But yeah, what I would like to say here, that the main element or the main factor who makes the places is the people. Just the people who makes the places better, make the places vibe and got some feeling and even warmer actually. So I would say I like London. London is one of the greatest, not even the great city in the world. So I feel like different when I moved from North England to London. Pretty much great experience.
The city looks sad and depressed, if I'm honest with you. I mean, who would have thought a city buzzing with life like London would be absolutely empty of the people? And it kind of reminds me of pictures in my head of empty towns and cities in Syria and in other places around the Middle East where people had to flee for their lives. And of course, that's a different situation that no one wishes to happen anywhere near here or anywhere in the world. And like they say, there's always a hope shining in the horizon. And I'm sure the people who live in London and will be up for the challenge. And London will get back on its feet again after the lockdown is lifted and everything is all right. We'll just be able to see each other again, and we'll see our friends and loved ones again.
That brings us to the end of tonight's event. From us here at the Museum of London, a huge thank you to all of our speakers tonight for sharing their inspiring stories with us. The conversation will continue over on our social media channels, so please do join us there. And a huge thank you to all of you for sharing our first online event with us this evening. We hope that you enjoyed it, and we hope to see you very soon.